Okay, so today we're going to talk about the side pose. Now, you MPC competitors out there, you don't necessarily do the side pose. In the OCB, you start out with the front pose, you go in the side pose, then you do the back pose, then you do another side pose, and then you come back to the front. NPC, they just basically do the front and the back. They got the front pose and they do a fancy transition into the back pose. Now, NPC competitors, don't just skip this video. You can actually get some good insight on some of the tips and tricks I'm going to talk about in this side pose. You could actually utilize some of these movements to even transition into your back pose. So definitely don't skip this video for sure, NPC competitors. Now, OCB, this is an absolute necessity for you. The side pose is a very important pose. And for starters, we're just going to start off with saying first, make sure you're twisting your shoulders for sure when you're doing this pose. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate some of this. I'm going to take my shoes off once again. Shirt off. Okay. So when I say the side pose, and we'll talk about different foot placement and everything else, but just for starters, I'm going to start off with this pose right here. Okay. This would be considered a side pose. You got your front pose like this, where you're standing more facing the judges like this, and then you transition into a side pose, okay? Or even like this, okay? Now, one really important thing that what I was mentioning about twisting the shoulders in the side pose is when you're doing it, maybe like this, maybe like this, okay? Twist, show that lat as much as you can to create the illusion of the width up top, okay? Because if you're just doing a normal side pose and you're standing sideways like this, especially if you're not thick, kind of like me, all right? You disappear, right? You just kind of disappear. There's no thickness to you. But if you twist like this, then it's going to make you look a lot wider up top, okay? And you can do that in multiple poses too. Just make sure that you're twisting, you're bringing this shoulder around, okay? And that really helps out a lot. I've had multiple judges. I actually lost a competition one time. I got second place when I should have definitely gotten first. And it was simply because I just wasn't twisting around enough. The judge actually came up to me after your show. He's like, as soon as you walked on stage, I had you as first place. And then I saw you do the side pose and you disappeared. You didn't twist enough. And for that, I had to deduct some points. And unfortunately, I got second place. So there's nothing worse than knowing that you looked the absolute best on stage and just one little thing went wrong with your posing and it cost you the competition. So it's the little things that really matter when it comes to posing. So that's why you're watching this video. So with these side poses, you can also do a hand on the hip, or you can do hand off hip. So I'll demonstrate it again. You're in your side pose like this. You can do it like this, whatever's more comfortable for you. Remember, it's whatever you're most comfortable with, and it makes you look the best at the same time, okay? So you can do a pose like this. That's fine. Or you can do it like this. Or you can have your feet switched like this. Okay? Just whatever works best for you. Now, I will say this. When you do have the hand on the hip, I see a lot of competitors, they'll do this right here. So they'll do a side pose like this, and then they'll have their hand on this hip right here and flexing like that. Now, I've never really heard a judge say that that's incorrect, but I've never seen anybody do really well that does that. And just in my personal opinion, I don't think it looks good at all. I don't like it. I think it looks a lot more aesthetically appealing when the hand is on the hip that is closest to the judges, to the audience, right? It just looks better. And you can also flex your shoulder, your arm, just your whole arm, and just create more definition like that versus doing like that. I don't know. I don't like it. I've never done it. It just doesn't look good to me, so I'm not going to recommend it to you. I've never recommended any of my posing clients to do that, and they've all seemed to do well, so I'm not going to tell you any different. So let's move on. We talked a little bit about this, the switching the feet in the side pose. You know, you got it like this, or you can have your other foot in front, back foot in the back. Do it like that. Again, just whatever's more comfortable for you. Now, I will tell you this. I've done this in a lot of shows, especially if, all right, so let's say you're in your side pose, right? And you're staying in it for a while. If you're in a pose for a long time, typically it means the judges are just kind of comparing everybody, and they're really just like, you know, it could be a closed show. So they're really taking their time writing down the points and, you know, deciphering, you know, who is scoring what. So sometimes it can help you to switch it up a little bit. It does two things. One, it shows that you're versatile, and second of all, it's automatically going to get the judge's attention if you're moving a little bit. And I'm going to show you an example right now. So you're in your side pose, right? Let's say the judges are just scanning, or, you know, they're taking down their points and everything else. And, you know, if you're just standing still, you know, more than likely everybody else is too, right? So, but if you just switch it up, just the slightest movement, just like this, it shows that you're comfortable in multiple poses, that most of your competition on stage, they're probably still doing the same pose, just sitting there, not doing anything. And you can just do the slightest movement, like this, switch it up a little bit, just to show that you know what you're doing. You're not confident, or you're confident in not just one pose, but multiple poses. So now you don't want to move like all the time, but that's like a backup weapon, you know, just in case, you know, you're sitting up there forever, you can just kind of show off a little bit more to the judges, okay? So, and I've used that, like I said, at a lot of different shows, and, you know, it works well. Just don't be fidgeting on stage. That's one thing I don't want you to do, because that just shows that it can translate to the judges that you don't really know what you're doing and you're not comfortable in a specific pose. So just don't switch it up too much. Keep it at a minimum of 2 different poses, and that's it. All right? And a lot of times you won't have time to, you know, switch poses like that. That's only if you're on stage for a while in the same pose until they tell you to, you know, quarter turn into the next pose, okay? Let's move forward. This is something that's very important, 100%, all right? And this goes for your front pose and your side poses. Your abs should always be fully engaged. I don't care what you're doing. And I'm going to teach you an exercise later on in this course that's going to help you keep your abs engaged all the time and make it way easier for you than any of the other competitors. So, but that's a little further in the course. So abs fully engaged all the time. So especially your obliques, especially in the side pose, okay? So I'm gonna do this pose right here, right? Your obliques are gonna be closest to the judges. You definitely want them to show the best. So you just slightly crunch down just a little bit, just a little bit. Now I'm not dieted down, you can't really see my abs, but I'm just giving you an example right now. So you twist it around, and your abs are fully engaged, and you just crunch forward just a little bit, just to make sure that you're showing as much definition as possible in your obliques, and of course, you know, your abs, okay? Remember, you're always breathing out when you're flexing your abs. You're never sucking in. I can't stress that enough. You're just like that, okay? That concludes this lesson. I hope this helps. Like all of these videos, make sure you play it over and over and over again and practice these poses. We're further in the course, we're going to go into transitions and how to make your poses more fancy and everything else. But right now, we're just going over the basics. I want to make sure that you learn the basics before we move on to the fancy stuff, okay? So again, practice this stuff, and I'll see you in the next course or the next video.